Hello and welcome to Redstone 101. Today we are going to be covering some redstone clocks. Not every type of clock that we can use, but just some of my favorites that I would use all the time and some good ones to start off with. So most of these are just going to involve using repeaters, and with this one, if you push the button here, you'll see that this clogs up. Now this is one repeater facing one way and a repeater facing the other way. Now if we're going to make this work, we'll just break these off if you want to use a button, that is. And if we extend this out a little bit to make the signal delay a little bit longer and then try that again, you'll see that it's able to tick, 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 tick. Now if we want to shorten this down a little bit, we actually won't be able to use a button for this. We'll have to use a lever. And if you want to do that, you just send it a really quick pulse by turning it on and off really quickly, just like that. And you'll see you get a much shorter clock. The problem with this is that stone buttons send a particular length pulse, and if you want to see with the wooden one, it actually sends an even longer pulse. So these are just two things to be aware of, that when you push the wooden, you'll see it stays on for longer than the stone one. So these are just things to bear in mind. With the comparator clock, it's just a comparator with redstone facing into the side, and most people would use this with a lever to keep it consistent. And what's happening is that it's subtracting from itself, and it's making the signal pulse. And so to subtract it, place down the comparator and set it to subtract mode, which is the light on. The next three designs that you see here are all exactly the same. It's just a repeater clock spaced out. Some have blocks, some have dust, and I've just done one with the mix so that you can see how each one of them works. So here's a very classic one. Repeater going into a block, into a block, into a block, into a block. And if you want to simplify this, you can do repeater going into dust, into dust, into dust, into dust. And now for all of these designs, and one of the reasons that I don't use them as much as I do for other ones, is that there's not really any way to turn it off except for to break the block here. So it just goes through from block to dust, block to dust. Now one way you can do it is to actually remove, if you place a sticky piston here and power that sticky piston, if you remove the block, you break the cycle. So it's switched on, it's switched off, and it stops pulsing. So if you wanted to disable your circuit, you could do it that way. Turn this, the sticky piston on and turn it off. Now over here we have my favorite, and that's because it's switch activated and it can be quite compact or quite large if you need it to be. So you can shorten this down so that it's much shorter. You don't need to worry about the pulse catching up to itself and locking it on. You can make it as long as you want. You can add more repeaters to it if you want, and we can actually make it as small as the original one that we were looking at there with just the 2 repeaters. And how this works is that one power source turns off the torch, which keeps it inverted, which means that when this switch is on, it pulses continuously, and when the switch is off, it stops pulsing. And there's loads of different ways that you can do this. I'm just showing you my favorites. So you'll see here, pulses quite quickly, and you don't need to worry about doing the switch, flicking it on and off really quickly. But here we are on the Etho hopper clock, which is now 10 years old this year. I believe it came out 10 years and a few days ago, which is what gave me the idea to make this video, because I realized that a few people may not know how to make clocks in redstone. So we can make this either side. I've actually covered how to do a couple of these things in some other videos, but if you want them to go along the top or along the side like this, you can. It depends on what your space restrictions are, I guess. So this is it from the side, and you'll see the sticky pistons are on the side of the device, or we can put it on top of the device, and that's just place it against the dust, place it against the dust, and you hold shift to place the hoppers into each other, and you place shift to press it against the dust like that. Now if you enter in a stack here, it will count down a stack of items. One of the comparators will run out, it will update the piston, and the other one will fire, and that's kind of how this works. And if you want to get a signal from it, you can have a signal coming out here, and that goes into your note block or whatever your device is. I'm just using note blocks in this example. You can take an observer and you can have it facing into the redstone block, into the piston, whatever it is, and you'll see that it pulses whenever it changes, and that gives you off your signal. And if you want to turn on and off this clock, now you'll see in a couple of seconds, once this empties out, that this block is on, which means that piston is locked on, and the clock will stop running. So we'll see this now in just 2 seconds. Boom, and it turns off, and it stays like that until you turn it on, at which point it will resume counting up and down again. So that's the on top version. I'll actually show you how to do the side version again properly. So hold shift to face the hoppers into each other. Comparator, comparator, then a block, then a block. And again for this one, you're putting the pistons on the ground adjacent to it so that the dust powers it when it's full or empty. I'll just put half in this time just so you can see it work a little bit faster. And like I said, there's loads of different ways that you can take the signal from this. You can even add a non-sticky piston to one side, and that'll mean that it's only activated, and once it's activated it'll stop. So you can send it a pulse and it'll continue out. Or if you want to add a torch to this side, for example, and then have that go off and push into your, let me just grab a note block here. Oops. There we go. So again, you would have where these note blocks are, or whatever the device that you're building is. I'm just using note blocks as an example so you can actually easily hear it. And let's just strip this out to make it a bit quicker. So there's your tick. And once the block, there you go, has no power in it, the torch will turn back on, and you can fill this up, and I mean like fill it. I'll put a link to a hopper 2 seconds timer in the description of this video in case you need to reference it. It's a really, really great way to count out how many seconds you want something to happen for. And out of all of these, I much prefer this one right here. I think it's the most versatile of the bunch. The Etho hopper clock is really brilliant, obviously, but with this one, it's just so simple to put together, and it gives you a lot of flexibility, and you can power all sorts of different parts of the circuit. Oh, sorry, that's not actually facing into the block. I'll just move that. So yeah, I just moved that because it was facing into the on part. Now it's facing into the off part, so it only pulses on when you want it to. And yeah, quick switch turns it on and off. So I hope this helped you out, guys, and if you have any questions, please do let me know, and if you have any redstone requests, put them down below.